Bristol Motor Speedway, Sunday afternoon, the half mile of mayhem. I am now joined by the one and only Dale Tanhart. Dale, it's great to see you, great to talk Bristol, but really, do we know what kind of Bristol we should even talk about? 1 year ago, that unusually high tire wear race, drivers could barely make it 40 laps on a single set. Contrast that with the fall race, where it felt like tires never wore out. Kyle Larson led over 400 laps. Dale, what kind of Bristol do you think we're going to see this weekend? Do you think we'll see something more like the spring, or is it going to look like what we saw in August?
Well, the hope is that we see what we saw this time last year. The worst thing that could have ever happened to NASCAR fans, because we saw a glimpse of greatness at the short tracks at Bristol here last spring. We thought we had completely cracked the code with Goodyear, with tires, and throughout 2024, the short track racing did improve a little bit, but not to the point that we saw at Bristol last spring. And the fall race was an unbelievable contrast. So the hope is that we see something similar to what we saw a year ago around this time, but with the track conditions, having PJ1 on the track instead of resin, which I'm not sure what's going into that decision. You have the same exact tire compound. You kind of feel like the racing's gonna be more similar to the fall, which is unfortunate if that is the case. But there's some potential weather in the area. The temperature is gonna be colder, so maybe, just maybe, with this particular tire combo, maybe we find some kind of balance and get something. I don't think we'll get what we got in spring last year. That was obviously a surprise to us and Goodyear as well. But maybe if we get something a little more in between the spring and the fall, we could have a better race than what Kyle Larson did to the field in the night race last year.
Yeah, absolutely. To clarify some things, Goodyear, yes, you said, is bringing the same tire that they brought to both races last year. The difference was in the spring race, they used a type of resin, whereas in the fall race, they put down more traditional PJ1 track bite. The difference this time around, they are using PJ1 once again, but apparently, according to Bob Pockrass, they are applying the PJ1 Friday morning before trucks, before Xfinity, before anyone sees the racetrack. Will they reapply at any point during the weekend? That remains to be seen. So a slight difference to last fall, but I'm with you. Unfortunately, it kind of sounds like we may be in for more of the same. Let's talk about some specific drivers. We've both mentioned Kyle Larson because obviously he dominated here last fall, led 462 laps. He also has the best average finish at Bristol in the next gen era of 3.3. This is crazy, Dale. You weren't here last week, but we talked about like Darlington. I think it was William Byron had the best next gen average finish. It was like 10th. Whereas here at Bristol, you have Larson, Hamlin, Elliott, Bell, Buescher, McDowell all have average finishes under 10. Some guys just seem to dominate this place. They've got it figured out. Who are some of the heavy favorites that you're having your eyes on this week, Dale?
Yeah, out of that list, Michael McDowell is crazy. I mean, he finishes between like 6th and 11th every single time we come here, it seems like. And he's in a different ride now, so we'll see how that goes with Spire. But all these guys that have run super well here are typically your top guys at Bristol and at other short tracks too. But when you look at how chalky this race has been in the Gen 7 era, not dirt, but all the concrete races that we've had, I'm going to look at Christopher Bell. Seems like he's let a couple of these get away. And as a betting man, if you can find like a 7-1 ticket on him, I like that pre-practice, pre-qualifying. I think he's gonna start up front. He's got a good late draw in qualifying via the qualifying groups that Bob Pockrass has posted. So I think Christopher Bell is going to be a factor. He's led over 300 laps here since 2022. And while Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin have been able to close the deal, Christopher Bell he's won Bristol Dirt, but he's seeking that first Bristol concrete win, and I think he's more than capable of it. So Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin have been red hot to start 2025. I think Kyle Larson, one thing you have to consider here, if you're trying to make a bet between the three, is Kyle Larson's going out really early in qualifying. And what we've seen in the qualifying groups to start 2025, those first 8 to 12 guys kind of clean the track off after practice, and then the track gets really, really fast. So typically when you go out early, you're kind of stuck in the bed of not qualifying super well. So I think Kyle Larson is going to start deeper in the field. If it's really tough to pass like it was last fall, you got to consider track position heading into Sunday. And I think Christopher Bell is going to have it, and I think Kyle Larson won't. So that's an important note in my mind. But out of all these guys, it's very likely if there's one guy that can pass his way through the field, we've seen it before. It's Kyle Larson. But I like track position, and Christopher Bell, I think, sticks out to me as someone who I think will have it and has a dominant enough resume here that he could be knocking on the door of that first Bristol concrete win.
Yeah. Hey, I think that's a great point you made about qualifying. And Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell have finished first and second at both of the short track we've seen so far this year, Phoenix and Martinsville. Now, Bristol's a bit different tire compound, high banked. I get it. But Hamlin Bell, 1-2, been pretty consistent to start this season. Speaking of Denny Hamlin, I want to talk about him a little bit more. He's going for 3 wins in a row, period. Won a couple weeks ago at Martinsville, obviously just stole the win here at Darlington. Last year in the fall race, he finished 4th at Bristol. So if you have any additional interest in Denny Hamlin, do you think you can talk a little more about how good he's going to be this weekend?
Yeah, another guy that's just led so many laps here. Seems like he runs first or second every single time. And honestly, we talked about earlier, the scenarios are we going to get a race like last spring where you had incredible tire fall off, or are we going to get a race like last fall? Denny Hamlin, I feel like, is the best driver in both of those scenarios. Obviously, he won the race here last spring with the superior tire management. And then in the fall, even when we don't have a lot of tire fall off, he typically qualifies well and is contending for the win. So under any circumstance, that's where Denny Hamlin, and that's why he's the odds-on favorite, is because regardless of any circumstance we have with the tire combination, how much fall off we might see, he is the best in both scenarios. So yeah, I would not be surprised if Denny gets 3 in a row. I mean, it's just the stars have aligned for him. And it blows my mind, Eric, because he was not a contender last week at Darlington, but with how difficult passing was and one untimely caution, it definitely helped him and Christopher Bell out on getting track position when guys like Byron, Blaney, Busher were probably the guys to beat overall. But I think it's going to be a different story here. I don't think you see Joe Gibbs Racing tanking to the back like they did in the early stages of Darlington, which was bizarre. Don't get me wrong, but Bristol's been unbelievable for those guys. So not only take a look at Denny Hamlin, but maybe Chase Briscoe and Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs, who's run well here before in the past, led laps in this race last spring. Multiple times you felt like he was going to win it, but as we go back to the superior tire management by Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, kept them closer to the checkered flag. So I think Joe Gibbs Racing entirely, you got to take a look at. Chase Briscoe is interesting because we're waiting for the breakout, right? We're waiting for that breakout. James Small has been fantastic at tracks like Darlington here. When are they going to just click and figure it out and put a full race together? So I think Gibbs entirely is going to be fantastic. And as we talked about, it starts with Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, a couple of points there. Talking about starting position, the importance of qualifying. Denny Hamlin has an average starting spot of 4th in the next gen era at Bristol. And you started to answer what my next question was going to be, mentioning Briscoe, who finished 8th here last fall in Stewart-Haas equipment. Ty Gibbs coming off his first top 10 of the season this past weekend at Darlington. I was going to ask you about maybe an unpredictable winner, contender, maybe a top 10 threat. We don't exactly know what version of Bristol we're going to see, so that may open the door for some surprising names to sneak their way towards the front. I'll nominate Ryan Preece. He's been pretty hot lately, 3 straight top 10s. That streak was, of course, snapped at Darlington, but he qualified well, started second. I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me. I don't know how early he goes out at Bristol. Maybe track position won't be his advantage to start, but RFK Racing has won here in the next-gen era. Brad Keselowski looked good here last spring, so I would throw Ryan Preece's name out there as a top 5 threat, and if all the stars align, maybe he squeaks out his first win. You mentioned Briscoe, you mentioned Gibbs. Is there anyone else that you may have your eye on that might surprise folks this weekend?
Yeah, I think you have to look at RFK. I think Ryan Preece is a good start because he's had a great start to 2025. It seems like he's been a contender at some point in most of these races at these technical racetracks since we got out of Daytona and Atlanta. Last week didn't work out super well. They just were not able to move back up in traffic. But I think when you look at Ryan Preece, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, all 3 have good enough results, a good enough resume at this track since 2022 that you could definitely vouch for them being fantastic underdog guys. And if I had to pick one out of the 3, Brad Keselowski's had a tough year. Had speed last week, it seemed like, for the first time, but just cannot catch a break. Ryan Preece has been pretty good, but Chris Buescher, man, this guy has been steady all year long, it seems. Outside of Martinsville, they had a pretty tough day, but Chris Buescher has just turned into a very versatile racer, which has surprised a lot of people in the Gen 7 era. And this has been a great track for him. One fall 2022, consistently finds his way up into the top 10, it seems like. So I like Chris Buescher out of those guys, out of the RFK camp. And then I'm going to lean with Zane Smith. You talk about earlier, Michael McDowell with front row was so consistent here. And he still might be. We're not going to rule out Michael McDowell, but Zane Smith in 2025, since we got out of Daytona and Atlanta, has been pretty good just about everywhere. He's been running between about 8th, 9th, and 15th. It seems like every single week. Last week at Darlington was running as high as P6, P7 on race pace. I mean, he was passing guys on the long run. So something has clicked with Zane Smith to make me believe he is a viable option as a sleeper this weekend, just because of what he's done in 2025 in the NASCAR Cup Series.
I like that Zane Smith pick. You're right. I noticed him running top 10 at Darlington last weekend. I don't feel like that got enough play on the broadcast on social media, so I'm glad you're highlighting Zane Smith right now, leading the points among all front row motorsports drivers early this season. We'll wrap up with this, Dale. Got to mention Kyle Larson one more time. He's going for the weekend sweep, I should say. Trucks Xfinity Cup. A few weeks ago at Homestead, he finished fourth first. So close to making history. Dale, what do you think? Where do you think Kyle Larson finishes this weekend?
I got to give myself a pat on the back for this because on my betting preview, Dale Center, I said he was going to win trucks, lose Xfinity, and win Cup. So anyone that typically watches, you saw that. Even though it could not have happened in a more wrong, predictable, or unpredictable way with the Xfinity Series and trucks for that matter. But I think he's got a much better shot at sweeping this weekend than he did at Homestead. And I was blown away with how good he was in the Xfinity car. If this race goes like it did last fall, Xfinity, you got to look back at that race, was a long green flag run to the finish, which we could really use in that series right now. As Mike Joy pointed out in the broadcast a couple weeks ago. But with Cup and Xfinity having long green flag runs last fall, it makes you feel like that's a good thing for Kyle Larson, especially with that Xfinity Series, because late race chaos has dictated a lot in that series over the past year and a half. So I think Xfinity, Kyle Larson has a great shot at winning. I think in trucks, he's got an even better shot at winning. You never count out Corey Heim, but that truck race flies by. And I think if Kyle Larson just has some track position early, gets out in front, I don't think they're going to pass him. So I think Kyle Larson has a fantastic opportunity to sweep, better than he had at Homestead. And I think it'd be fun for a lot of fans. And he really needs it after what happened this past Sunday at Darlington. So it feels like, unless you're a Larson hater or a Max Verstappen guy or girl, everybody or a lot of people would enjoy seeing it. So I think he's got a great shot at it.
It's always cool to see someone chase history, trying to be the first driver since Kyle Busch to sweep all 3 national series in the same weekend. Better chance than Homestead, you say. That's a little scary considering how good he was just a few weeks ago. Dale, thank you so much for joining the show this week. Where can folks find you on social media? You got anything that you're working on? What can folks look forward to from Dale Tanhart?
Yeah, just add Dale Tanhart everywhere, X, Instagram, TikTok, Kick for my iRacing live streams, which is pure greatness, by the way, and class, maturity, professionalism on the sim at its highest level. But my betting preview, Dale Center NASCAR betting preview for Bristol will be out on Thursday. So check that out if you want more advice, analytics. We've had a pretty good start to 2025 from a profitability standpoint. And I'll also be down in Bristol this weekend doing a collaboration with the racetrack. So super excited to be back at Bristol. Hopefully we get good weather all weekend long and have some good racing too. So just Dale Tanhart everywhere. And hopefully for you guys and girls that are attending Bristol, I'll see you down there.
That's awesome, man. We'll have a good time out there. And thanks again for hopping on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.